We need to stop fossil fuel in order to save humanity. Here's a little video that will explain the process. Of course, climate change is a real threat to humanity. Then why do some people resist the idea? This nightmare situation, let's learn why they resist it. If you love your planet, if you love your children, then watch on.
If you look at the 10 hottest years ever measured, they've all occurred in the last 14 years.
The accumulation of CO2 in the atmosphere from fossil fuel, this is undeniable and it's a worldwide crisis. And yes, we could lose the planet. We could lose humanity. If we look at the history of what has happened in the world underneath the beginning of mankind when we had agriculture, then the fossil fuel area, we've really challenged and possibly represent the end of humankind, the end of humanity. And just why do people so resist it? Why can't we return to an agricultural society?
The scientific consensus is that we are causing global warming. This is Patagonia 75 years ago and the same glacier today. This is Mount Kilimanjaro 30 years ago and last year. Within the decade, there will be no more snows of Kilimanjaro.
Each step of extracting fossil fuel, processing, refining, transporting, each step of that fossil fuel gives off carbon dioxide and destroys oxygen. Whereas if we grow our fuel, we will absorb the carbon dioxide and give off oxygen.
This is really not a political issue so much as a moral issue. Temperature increases are taking place all over the world, and that's causing stronger storms.
We've known about this for decades, for over half a century. Try to have a conversation with anyone about climate change, people just tune out.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change.
And the problem seems to be getting worse and worse and worse.
The Arctic is experiencing faster melting. If this were to go, sea level worldwide would go up 20 feet. This is what would happen in Florida. Around Shanghai, home to 40 million people. The area around Calcutta, 60 million. Here's Manhattan. The World Trade Center Memorial would be underwater.
Another foot.
Another foot, ah.
You better keep it to yourself.
Oh, of course I'll keep it to myself. Until the water reaches my lower lip, and then I'm gonna mention it to somebody.
Yes, this is a crisis situation, and we should mention it not just to somebody, we should mention it to everybody. And we should look for changes, but let's find out why we don't look at it as a human race.
The truth is, the more I've learned about this issue and everything that contributes to the problem, the more I realize how much I don't know.
Oh my God! Look at how violent that is.
Paradise that has been degraded and destroyed. We're knowingly doing this. I just want to know how far we've gone, and if there's anything we can do to stop it.
Think of the impact of a couple 100,000 refugees, and then imagine 100 million.
100 million displaced people moving everywhere. It's a nightmarish situation. And just why don't we really do anything about it as a group of people? Well, it's because it's very difficult, almost impossible, to get someone to believe something that interferes with their income. Money becomes very important to these people, and who are these people? The planet has been hot and has had excess carbon dioxide before, but plants have been the thing that have saved us. Now, in part 2, we're going to discuss just why we don't end fossil fuel. Not everyone in big oil is a criminal, but almost all the ultra-rich criminals are into big oil. Have you ever noticed that movie bad guys are almost always invested in some type of big oil? They have tankers, pipelines, transports, gas stations, something like this. Because, see, it's largely true. And when the hero wants to hurt them, what he does is blow up the big oil. You see, the mafia people, the ultra-rich, the evil ultra-rich, They invest in oil because it's an easy way for them to make money. And in so making, they actually hurt the planet. Dirty, polluted, expensive oil. The rest of us got used to. It's time for us to wake up to the ideas of global warming, and to wake up and understand that the bad guys are invested in the oil. It's time for us to recognize that we cannot ignore climate change just because of profit. Profit, like many of these people. Profit cannot be used over people. Profit over people is evil, and evil in itself.
I'm an oil man. Ladies and gentlemen, I have numerous concerns spread across this state. I have many wells flowing at many thousand barrels per day. I like to think of myself as an oil man.
The world's first billionaire was an oil tycoon, and it started to change. It started a trend, it started an idea that money could be made on big oil.
I hate most people. There are times when I look at people and I see nothing worth liking. I want to earn enough money I can get away from everyone.
Greed took over, and the ideas of climate protection and the planet people were lost in the way of profit.
You may have noticed his lifestyle has become increasingly lavish. I've noticed. This is a different species, counselor. It will rip out your liver and feed it to your dog.
Of course, we're not talking about the hardworking people working the oil rigs and doing all the work. We're talking about the ultra-rich people at the top, putting profit over people.
The point, counselor, is that you may think there are things that these people are simply incapable of. But there are not.
Draws the room and starts to drink your milkshake. I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
Don't bully me, Daniel.
Yes, the ultra-rich people who got into big oil started to do anything to preserve their profits.
I'm your friend. I'm not trying to hurt you. Never. Just survive.
Yes, every drug lord, criminal, kingpin, mafia boss, all of the evil rich are deeply invested in fossil fuel because there's massive amounts of profit here. Massive amounts of profit. And even Donald Trump has no clue about climate change. He's so into profit and profit over people. And all of the people who protest fossil fuel, they seem to get silenced or removed. We need to really take a look at it because, see, actually, climate change really is true. It does threaten our existence on this planet. The ice caps are truly melting.
Another foot.
Another foot. Ah.
You better keep it to yourself.
Oh, of course I'll keep it to myself. Until the water reaches my lower lip, and then I'm gonna mention it to somebody.
Yes, it's time we mention it to somebody. In fact, we need to mention it to everybody, everybody you know. We need to be able to share and care, and dare to share and care. We need to be able to tell people climate change is real, and we need to go from a drilling oil, fossil fuel, into growing our oil, growing our energy. This is the only way we can save our planet. And now in part 3, how Russia is dependent on fossil fuel, and they help to slant the election. You have to understand that drug lords, kingpin, mafia bosses, the evil ultra-rich, they're invested in fossil fuel. If you take a look at Russia, Russia is very, 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 very heavily dependent and invested in fossil fuel.
How can the next president of the United States embrace a leader who kills journalists and jails political opponents?
I don't do that, do I? I don't. Those reports are lies, and anyone who says otherwise will be jailed.
Donald Trump is clearly unfit to be president, and they tried to do this in a kind of a way to make fun of the United States and the system of democracy.
You just got that answer from him.
What? No, we're just good friends. We're so close, we finish each other's
elections.
Russia really did help Trump to get elected by creating lies and rumors about Hillary that got believed. You see, Trump has the idea that global warming is a Chinese hoax. I don't know whether he really is that stupid to think that he knows more than the scientists, but the real truth is that global warming is absolutely a fact. We need to end the fossil fuels. See, even Bernie Sanders had to say it's beyond comprehension how the president could not believe in climate change, how he could think that because there's a cold day that it's not global warming. Well, I'm sorry, Trump. Even though you're hundreds of feet in the air, you're sinking. You have to be able to do something. This is beyond comprehension. You see, and global warming isn't real because it's cold today. And great news, world hunger is over because I just ate. You see, this type of ludicrosity has to be stopped. We have to be able to listen to the scientists. And why did we elect a moron like Trump? Well, you see, Trump was able to come in and start questioning the ideas of truth, getting rid of facts and science and decency and common sense, not to mention getting rid of religious freedom and constitutional law. You see, the idea of truthiness, so you could believe pretty much anything. And when it comes to climate change, and if we take a look at Trump's cabinet appointees, who were really kind of ludicrous, big oil by far dominates the people he chose. To run the EPA, he chose somebody who doesn't care about the environment. For Monsanto, he picked people from Monsanto to work with agriculture. He picked Tillerman, the Exxon Valdez Tillerson guy, who worries about making money and was a CEO. And how Donald Trump himself thinks that wrestling is real. Can that really be? Well, he picked the WWE owner to be the head of Small Business Administration. He picked Lucas Oil guy to work with Secretary of the Interior. You see, the whole idea, you don't care about the future, give me money today. That really, we have to worry about this. And if you ask your friends, what if he gave you all the money you could ever want, but humanity would end in 100 years? How many of your friends would say, okay? Yes, how many people would say, okay, take the money and not care about anybody else? Well, it just takes one or two of these people. That's all it takes.
The world is now watching. We ask you to protect it. Are we and all living things we cherish our history?
The United States has been given the Trump card, and perhaps it might trump our environment, our future. You see, Trump believes that climate change is a hoax, and now we're going to watch our climate burn because he thinks he knows more than the scientists. It's really a shame. And you, the people, you need to use your brain or lose it. Use it or lose it. And when it comes to our brain, we need to understand we need to use it or we might lose the earth. We might lose the planet. We might lose the future of humanity. If we use our brains now to save the world, we would realize we don't have to give up oil. We just have to farm the oil. Farming the oil would end the global warming. You see, even Rudolph Diesel, he made the diesel engine to run on peanut oil, vegetable oil, to get away from the fossil fuel. And by growing the peanuts, the vegetables, we produce oxygen, eat up the carbon dioxide. Every gallon of fuel will take tons of CO2 out of the atmosphere. Every gallon will take tons out of. If we absorb the CO2, we end global warming. But that would mean a major shift into financial power, away from the evil people, into the farmers, into the hands. We go to a type of society of plants, an agricultural society. Back to the garden, I like to think. Take ourselves back to the garden and be able to take humanity back to a place where we could grow our medicines, our fuel, and everything. Provide jobs for everybody. Hard jobs. I know farming is not easy jobs. We would help save the planet. Part 4. Proof we can grow fuel for our cars and jets. Biofuel is cheaper, cleaner, scrubs CO2, makes oxygen, and it can be used today in your cars. There's a major crisis threatening all of humanity, global warming. You see, our friend Rudolf Diesel, he made the diesel engine so that it would run on vegetable oil. He saw it happening. Now let's see a little bit of proof of this from Mythbusters and Brainiac.
Fries and all the fry oil you can lay on me.
So what is this mystery solution?
That right there, it's the end of the gas conspiracy.
It's used cooking oil, the leftover gunk at the bottom of deep fat fryers. And believe it or not, this may be the next big thing.
Every gallon of biofuel will clean tons of CO2 out of the atmosphere. So we have to really look at it. And yes, it does indeed work.
Brainiacs are tackling the global fuel crisis by finding an alternative to diesel and cooking oil. All they need now is a worthy test vehicle. And here it is, the Jacobsen Greens King Mark III lawnmower, used by greenkeepers.
It works everywhere. It works in your cars every place. It'll even work in 747s. You can make jet fuel out of the Jatropha plant.
To put it to the test, they're going to drive a circuit in a diesel car which has their viewable fuel tank attached.
We've been hearing that people are running their cars completely without any modifications on used vegetable oil.
Yes, without modifications, as he said. Diesel engines are made to run on plant biofuel.
Today, this magnificent mower is going to help the Brainiacs lovingly care for the planet.
So now it's not just for your mower, not just for your car. It works on jets. You can make biojet fuel.
Remember, this is unmodified chip oil, the stuff that restaurants everywhere chuck out.
It seems to be running just fine.
They do the laps and get a mileage almost identical to the diesel, which for free fuel is impressive.
Yes, it indeed works, and it's cheaper, it's cleaner, scrubs CO2 out of the atmosphere, and makes oxygen. It's all about plants that absorb the CO2.
And we have forward motion. He's mowing like a man possessed. Vegetable oil is used to make biodiesel for cars using a complex industrial process called transesterification. The Brainiacs prepared their oil using a process called frying. And it seems to be working as the mower approaches the finish line, and with it, an end to the global fuel crisis.
Jet fuel, car fuel, it all works. It's been proven, tested, safe, and cleaner.
Number one, I'm surprised and impressed that the car runs on just straight filtered used kitchen oil.
That's cool.
The other thing is we didn't make any modifications to this car. That means anybody who had a diesel car could just pour the stuff straight into the gas tank and it would run fine.
Yes, 10 years ago we knew that biofuel is cheaper, it's cleaner, scrubs the CO2, and it makes oxygen.
That oil directly, the type of cooking oil that you can buy for very cheap, really can be made right into biodiesel very, very cheap. And you can do it at home. And then you have a closed circle with oxygen, not this type of broken circle. You see, we need to put oxygen into the equation.
You see, plants absorb the CO2, and you can use that plant oil, bio oil, to make jet fuel. Now, people will say, oh, well, we don't have enough room. Well, let me tell you, in the planet today, if every person on Earth moved to just South Africa, that little red dot down there at the bottom, there still would be less population density than in Tokyo today. There is plenty of place everywhere in this world. Biofuel is cheaper, it's cleaner, it scrubs the CO2, and it makes oxygen. Then why don't we use it? You see, we are face it with a big problem. Fossil fuels have made 30% of the species extinct, and the next species might be people. Quite literally, we are looking at possible extinction of the human race. But growing our oil would mean a major shift in the financial power. It would be going away from the evil people, evil ultra-rich, the bad guys, criminals. It would be going into farmers. And as Willie Nelson saw, he said that there were small farm owners being driven out. But yet here we could recover the strength of the farm, the farmer, the backbone of our society. And there's more than just one Willie Nelson. There's two Willie Nelsons fighting for the farmers. And I hope that you can now see that beyond a shadow of doubt, every gallon of biofuel is helpful. But yet, why don't we do it? Plants are the only thing that can save us, to take in the CO2 and produce oxygen. This has happened way in the back, millions and millions of years ago, and plants were needed. Now, in part 5, we're going to see how we can convert the deserts back into a paradise. And now we're facing a watershed we've done from global warming. A problem that has happened because of an accumulated problem that it is happening in the extinction of species, and the next species that could be extinct might be humans. We might be looking at the end of humanity. As we look at this, we need to see the big culprit responsible is big oil and all their lawyers that cover up the crimes. And basically we all know that plants take in CO2 and give off oxygen for humans who take in oxygen, give off CO2, this great big cycle. And that in the world, our forests and our trees and all the plants are the lungs of the world, creating a big problem. In addition to that, we have big oil, which is drilling for oil. And with oil drilled from the ground, destroys oxygen and makes excess carbon dioxide. The oil drilled from the ground is expensive, dirty, and pollutes the air that we breathe. And see, every step of the process of drilling for the oil, refining the oil, transporting the oil, every step will give off more and more and more carbon dioxide and burn up oxygen. Every step of the process is what we call a cycle that is not giving anything back. It's what we call a broken cycle of the fossil fuels. And if we look at a closed cycle, where we're going to be able to take in the carbon dioxide, give off oxygen, and make fuel, this would be the answer to the future problems. Simply put, we need to grow our oil, and we can grow our oil. Rudolf Diesel made the diesel engine to run on peanut oil, run on vegetable oil. It was his intent to save us from the damages of the ultra-rich oil companies. So he built that device. And if we use that, we would find that the plants used to make 1 gallon of fuel will burn up a ton of carbon dioxide, more than a ton, and release oxygen. So we will find that it's cheaper, cleaner, makes oxygen, reduces CO2 if we get biological bio-oils. And there is enough land in Africa for Europe's and Africa's diesel needs. And yes, indeed, farming oil would end the global warming crisis. If we were to do that and farm our oil, there'd be no more pipelines to burst, no more tankers to crash, no more ocean spills. But you see, if we farmed the oil, it would clean up the atmosphere. But evil big oil doesn't want that, because growing oil would make a shift in the financial power. And people in the Far East don't want this story to be told. They don't want the media to tell the story. They don't want scientists to tell the story. And of course, millennials, they don't want you to know the story. They don't want you, society. We could distill the water from seawater with simple greenhouses. It can be done. The free energy of the sun could be used to take seawater and extract the salt. If we take the sand and combine it with the soda and the salt and the other things, and we could get free power from the sun to be able to do this in the desert areas, and if we take the sand and fuel from the sun, we could make glass, we could make ourselves. And using the sand and salt to make glass, we can then take it in and grow our food and fuel and medicines. In a technological, agricultural, high-tech type of farming idea. The sun would provide the evaporation power. We could then make lakes and turn the deserts into lush, beautiful, wondrous places to live. And all of this is at very low cost to be able to take in the carbon dioxide, give off oxygen, make food and fuel in these greenhouses. And these greenhouses could be used even in other extreme places where there's cold, and also to be able to make our food and fuel. Yes, high-tech agricultural will be the solution. You see, the sun is able to do this with the power of plants, and chemical companies do not know how to make this type of food or fuel. You see, plants know how to do this. And we could start building places and slowly in the desert start to make the desert into more and more living space as these places start to crop up over and over again, many different places all over. And it's already being started. We just need to put more attention. And the energy to do this and what it would cost is very minimal for us. Here we have some of the deserts of North America. And if we look around the world, even just the deserts of Australia would be enough to be able to make food and fuel. And high-tech is already happening in Japan. See, over in Japan, they're starting to use high-tech agricultural in different apartment complexes, you see. And they're finding ways to be able to do this. We need to do it on a grander scale and bring the force of our technology into a high-tech agriculture and bring it together and work with life, work with plants. You see, plants have a spirit and a soul. If you look at them, they don't talk the same language, but they talk a language. The plants have a spirit and a soul. This has been proven in many different places. Why do scientists like to reject it? They think that if you don't speak English or don't speak some type of language, but in real truth, these plants have a spirit and a soul. And they're part of the natural process. Through a very complicated process, they take in the sunshine and they use the photons of the sunshine to make those bits of food, make that bits of fuel. And if we go back to a high-tech agriculture and stop digging and stop making synthetic products and use nature, we could come back to a place where we could restore the world to a real healthy balance of the future, a healthy balance, and open the door. You have to be able to control the greed. You can look at all the different movies we've made about the evil ultra-rich, Return to the Garden, all the different types of movies to help to educate you, to understand more. See, I'm proud of being an American, and I hope that we don't lose America, and I hope that we don't lose the world. And it's in your hands, millennials. It's up to you. We must switch to an agriculture, a high-tech agricultural society. And now, in part 6, an open letter to the world to save us from a climate disaster. This is an open letter to demand our culture that we switch from fossil fuels to biofuels. Global warming really does truly threaten the future existence of humanity. It is now the grown plant oil fuel is then cleaner, cheaper, safer, and it helps the environment in every way. And I repeat, it's much less expensive. It's cheaper. Now let's see now. If we all know that it's cleaner, cheaper, safer, and less toxic, if we know that growing the oil destroys the CO2 and makes life-giving oxygen, and we know that the growing the oil, the bio-oil, it's available right now. It's available to us in biomass oil and bio-oil and biofuel and algae and vegetable oil. And it runs on all diesel cars everywhere. Rudolf Diesel made his diesel engine to run on peanut oil so it would end the dependency of the farmer on evil big oil. Rudolf Diesel was killed to silence his mess, grow our medicines and our natural foods. You see, a switch to the bioculture is stopped by the evil ultra-rich who control the media. They do not want us to do this switch. They control so much of our world, and they are heavily invested in drilling, transporting, refining the expensive, dirty, polluting, CO2 producing toxic oil. They control the media and they twist every story. The evil ultra-rich want to buy up more of the small food, but our energy as well. And this is an open letter to all to hope to start to open the doors so that we all can understand this is an important thing.